Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Anewgo of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Chrisanthon, and joining me today is Carrie Deweese. Carrie, welcome to the show. I am so very excited to have our conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And Carrie, you and I have known each other for a few years now through PWB and just attending meetings, but I don't know your story. So I would love to learn your story. How did you get to where you are? Tell us your life story. How did you end up in home building?
My family are builders. My dad has been building since 1986. And out of college, I thought I was going to go change the world. And so I was actually a lobbyist for the state of Oklahoma. And I helped start an information and referral line that's actually nationwide, but it's 211. So like 911, except for Health and Human Services. And it was an incredibly stressful job. Several colleagues just dropped dead from stress-related issues. They were getting cancer and brain aneurysms. And during Hurricane Katrina, a lot of those refugees came to Oklahoma looking for shelter and were utilizing the 211 line. And at the same time, shortly after, we had a big ice storm where everyone had to use this lifeline to find out about services. And it just was bananas. And I had no power. And I got a phone call that said, "We need you in Oklahoma City," which is an hour and a half away from where I live. And I said, "I don't even have power." And they said, "We're sending a state trooper to get you." And my husband just said, "If you don't quit this job, it is going to kill you. You cry every night. Why don't you figure out something to do?" And so I had lunch with my dad one day and he said, "You've worked on my jobs as a kid. Why don't you just get into real estate until you figure out what you want to do?" And 18 years later, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. So that's how I got into it. It was just a placeholder to figure out what I wanted to do, but it ended up being something that I actually really liked doing and I hope I'm good at. So that's my genesis.
So you are changing the world, like you said. So Carrie, tell us a little bit more about your business. So obviously you're a licensed real estate agent, what your book of business looks like, what type of clients do you typically cater to? Is it new construction? Is it resale? Is it a mixture of both? So just give us all the goods.
It's a little bit of everything. I'm a licensed realtor. My father's business is a family business. So my husband and my brother, a couple of aunts, three cousins, and my mom have all worked for him or are working for him. And so I do love new construction. I grew up in this business and I've been a member of my local HBA since the 90s and I know a lot of builders. And so it's been easy for me to sell new construction. That's an easy way for me to say, "Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if we're not finding what you want, how about we make something that fits you like a suit?" And then I can send them to any builder that can help them construct their dreams. A lot of my book of business consists of resale. A lot of people who are wanting something different. And then just through like natural organic course of nature, I've gotten into remodels. It started as make readies for clients to get their homes ready for sale. And then people said, "Maybe I just want to stay. What if we do this?" Or, "Oh my gosh, we had a flood. Can you put this back together for me?" And so I've morphed into some remodel clients. And then during the economic downturn, some flips, distressed properties that needed love and some dusting off and to be put back out there. And so I know flip is a dirty word, so I've tried to make it be a product that I would want my kids to live in, make it a nice home for somebody. So my book of business is pretty big. I think I joke with people, if it's not nailed down, or even if it is nailed down, I'll sell it. So
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. And so, Carrie, you're in Oklahoma. Where in Oklahoma are you? And can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the market right now? You know, as far as prices, maybe compared to 2 years ago during the craziness of things, what your demand looks like. Are there homes for sale available? What, the average day on the market looks? Are people still going crazy bidding over? Tell us what's going on in Oklahoma.
So I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's the northeast part of Oklahoma. It's called green country because we have a lot of trees and a lot of hills and undulations in our topography. And so that's one of the reasons people like to live here. We've had quite a few people since the pandemic move into the area because if you know anything about Oklahoma, you know how conservative, I guess, we are. And so we shut down for the pandemic, I think, for 2 weeks. And then everything was just open. And a lot of Hollywood people came to film movies here because we allowed it. And so that's really helped grow our community. We are still, so if it's happening on the coasts, it takes about 2 years to trickle in to Oklahoma. So while our prices did go up about 30%, we're not seeing a decrease. I read a news article today talking about, oh gosh, these banks are going to fail and people are having to reduce the property price of their house because of interest rates. And I thought, what are you talking about? That is not the case here. We still have an inventory shortage just because builders can't build them fast enough. We don't have a lot of land left to build that is close to a city center. The further out you get, the less desirable it is because we are a people of convenience and we want to only be 20 minutes away from anything. So that's been a challenge. So we are still in a bit of an inventory shortage, but we're seeing more houses come on the market. And ironically, this spring, even though interest rates went up, a lot of buyers in my area have just said, I'm fed up. During the pandemic, I was forced into this decision. I was forced into this house, and I just want to be happy and I'll refi later. So we're actually seeing a pretty big buyer boom, which defies logic, in my opinion, but they are just tired of being forced into a decision. So what helps me help my clients when they want to list is I say, okay, a buyer will pay you asking price, but your house has to be perfect. So we want them to get two projects, not have two projects. So let's spruce it up, make it perfect, and put it out there, and you'll get competing bids. And that's really what we're seeing. If you just throw your house out there just to see what happens, it's going to sit. Because again, buyers just want to be happy and they want something that's perfect and they'll pay you for it. But that's what we're seeing in our market. So new construction is selling very quickly because it has what everybody's wanting, and redone resale is selling very quickly in our market still.
That's great news for you, obviously.
Yeah.
And so, Carrie, I'm curious, pricing wise, where are you in your area for a new construction home versus a resale? Like what the spread typically looks like, and what's the average price for new construction versus resale?
So average price for a resale home, price per foot, I would say average would be 150 a square foot. That can go up or down just depending on location and amenities. New construction, affordable new construction is close to 200 a foot. But I think our average price, I looked the other day, is in the 300s. Average home sale price, a starter home is probably in the high 300s in new construction. And I know that's a little bit less than what it is across the rest of the country, but it's not markedly less. We're seeing people who come to Oklahoma from California thinking they're going to get a huge discount, and that it's just not happening here. We probably pay the same for windows and toilets and P-traps that they do in California, maybe just a hair less. So there's a little bit of sticker shock if you come to Oklahoma from the coast and think you're going to get a bargain because it's affordable, but it's just not a huge discount.
Still, compared to like where I am, I'm outside of Philadelphia. Like to me, that sounds like, wow, that's a dream come true. Here, for double the price, you would be stretched to find a fixer-upper. So it's crazy. So that's great. And then, for issues that you're seeing, especially with new construction, especially with your family being involved in new construction, is it the same struggles that you hear on a national level, affordability issues? Are you guys having any issues with getting transformers and all those things? So talk to me a little bit about some of the biggest challenges that you see for new construction specifically in your area.
New construction in our area has a little bit different set of challenges than they do nationwide, just because Oklahoma is oil and natural gas country. And so we're probably not ever going to pass a gas ban. So the availability of natural gas appliances and heating and cooling equipment and things like that the availability is there, and the gas companies will pay rebates to people who put in new equipment. So it's financially advantageous for people to do that. We have not seen an issue with transformers yet. I know that could be coming down the pike for us, but we have not seen that yet. And our congressional group is pretty vocal. You see them in the news a lot for pounding their fists. And so hopefully we don't run into that. Hopefully we're lucky enough that we don't run into that. But one of the issues that we're running into that is the same across the country are regulations. All of the extra imposed regulations cost more to build, and then it's handed down to the consumer. It's also inconvenient. For example, I know everyone across the country is dealing right now with a situation called cluster mailboxes. If you're a developer and you're building up a 100-house neighborhood, the US Postal Service wants to make their jobs easier, and you all 100 people have to have cluster mailboxes in 1 or 2 locations. Hopefully, as you're driving into your neighborhood, you remember to stop and get the mail, and that just affects everybody, and that affects the price of things. Regulations on how efficient heat and air units have to be. There's really not any proof that it's saving the environment, but they just keep adding on these regulations, which makes the equipment more expensive, which makes starter homes more expensive, or even people who are on fixed incomes, when they have to replace units like this, it hurts them. And so I think regulations are hurting everybody. And I'm not sure why they continue to pass those on. I don't think I've ever gotten a good answer about that. I'm sure somebody's getting paid to figure that out and to make those regulations. But yeah, the extra regulations on new construction are hurting us just as much as they are other people across the country.
One of the things that we can do to make our voices heard is, of course, attending spring leadership meetings in conjunction with the legislative conference, which is coming up June 10th through 14th. So I assume you're going to be there.
Absolutely.
And I am so curious that you have that background in
Lobbying.
lobbying. Yes. So it's got to be near and dear to your heart. And I can see the passion when you talk about it. So talk to us a little bit about your experience at the spring leadership meeting and specifically legislative conference, because many of our listeners may be new to that. They have not attended. And I know we've been talking quite a bit on previous podcasts about this, because I'm really trying to get people to show up. Because when I came for the very first time in 2019, my eyes were opened and I was like, wow, I had no idea this was going on here. And this is so cool. So I'd love to hear your personal experience. Why do you come to those?
So if you were a kid in the late 70s, early 80s, I don't know if you ever watched Schoolhouse Rock, but they used to teach how a bill became law. And they used to teach kids, and I hope they still teach this in elementary school, that you can make a difference. You have the power to influence how a bill becomes law and what governs our country. That's what makes us a free country. And so I always believed that as a kid. And so that's why I got into lobbying. But you don't have to be a lobbyist to go to the legislative conference. You can, as a part of your local HBA, just let your executive officer know, hey, I'm going to the legislative conference. What can I do? Tag me in, coach. And they will give you a whole list of speaking points. And they are setting appointments for your local group, whether it's state or local, to meet with your legislators while you're there in Washington, D.C. on that Wednesday. And they give you speaking points of what to say. And so it's not just you doing the talking. There will be a group of 5, 10, or even 25 of you in the room speaking with your congressman or senator about the issues at hand. And you, if it's your first time and you don't feel comfortable, or if it's your 100th time and you still don't feel comfortable, watch and listen. There will be somebody who talks about it. Your congressman or senator will tell you, this is why we can't do this, or tell me more why we should do this. And watching that exchange and knowing that maybe at some point in the conversation you have affected change is the best feeling in the whole world. So even if it's your first time, just go and walk the halls with them and sit and listen. Take your walking shoes, because you walk a lot, a whole lot, and dress in layers, because in the buildings, they're all like marble and it's ice cold, but outside it's really warm. So take your layers, but just be a part of the process. Be a part of the great opportunity we get as Americans to argue and fight and try and make change for the better. And so that's why I think people should go. That's why I go. I have to believe at the end of the day, some little squeaky part of my voice that I spoke up and said something might have a ripple effect and make change for the future.
I believe it will, and it does. And Carrie, and if you guys are like, oh, how do I contact my local HBA? Who's the person and all that? So I think when you register for the leadership meetings, and if you just go to nhb.org, you'll type in Spring Leadership Meetings 2024, and you'll see a link to register. Once you register, I think your information goes to your local, and they will reach out via email to the group saying, okay, this is our plan, but we meet at so, and then they have certain appointments that they'll set up. And so sometimes they'll split the group, but most of the time you will stay together with your state, which is also really great networking opportunity for anybody going.
Sometimes those local executive officers at their HBA get really busy, or they might only be part-time. So if you do register and you don't hear from anyone, feel free to call them and just say, hey, I'm going, how can I help? And get their schedule, get the list of what they are wanting to do. And if that still doesn't happen, when you get to Washington, D.C. and you on-site register and say, hey, I'm here, ask them to connect you to your state or your local people, just to make sure that you don't miss out or have a bad experience.
Yes, and we'll all be together in a room at first when they brief you. So you'll find your people there. So it's really an easy thing to come to. And I live in Pennsylvania, but my company belongs to North Carolina. I end up going splitting my time sometimes between Pennsylvania and North Carolina people. So it's always interesting for me to go to different things. Actually, one of the things that we've known each other for a few years, I think we met probably during one of the YP PWB meetings at the Nationals, and we've kept in touch and seen each other at events and so forth. And one of the latest things that we're in together is, of course, the National Association of Home Builders Leadership Academy. So I was so excited to see your name when they announced our cohort of 15 individuals. I was like, oh, yay, another familiar face and a name. I'd love to talk a little bit about that and tell our listeners about the program, because many may not know what it is, because especially it's first time that they launched it this year. And why did you decide to be a part of this program?
To the best of my understanding, and especially, I think they're still working out the bugs since it's a first time or the inaugural cohort, but they wanted to find people who were already in leadership through NAHB councils and committees and other activities, and get them together, or get a group of 15 of them together and empower them a little bit more to maybe be better leaders or more effective leaders or go further in their leadership abilities. And honestly, I applied just because I was curious. Okay, what is the next step in leadership? Especially, I'm an associate. And so from what I understand, as an associate, you could be chair of the whole thing if you're a builder, but not if you're an associate. And so I think I really wanted to understand more what opportunities were there for associates to become leaders and to, again, affect change in the building industry. And so I'm really excited to be with you and with other people I've gotten to work with over the years, and just all hold hands together and figure out what we're doing and how we're going to make a change. Everybody in that group is a change maker, and I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. And so during our last meeting, which was virtual, we actually had somebody come in and talk to us about best practices when it comes to lobbying tips, which I'm sure was perfect segue for you. And it was actually very useful for us, obviously, as we're preparing to head to DC in June. But I'd love to know, from the meetings that we've had so far, what was your biggest takeaway or a favorite thing, or maybe something that surprised you or something that you really enjoyed?
Gosh, I would say the thing I really enjoyed the most was all of us being together and bouncing ideas off of one another. Everyone was pretty quiet about when they were talking to us about the advocacy efforts, but I think most of the people in that room have done this for several years. They've gone on these legislative days for several years. But the best part for me was when we get into that group think where we're all brainstorming, and it's just like iron sharpening iron. One idea sparks another good idea, sparks another good one. And that is my favorite part. I don't know. I told my husband the other day, I wish I could figure out how to monetize that, because that's what gives me joy. Like hearing the good ideas and building off of each other's good ideas. I wish there was a way to make a
You can.
living from
It's called
that.
mastermind. You just got to start your own mastermind group. There is actually a lot of masterminds that are monetized depending on the niche. So there you go. That could be your next $1 million idea.
There you go. I'm going to credit Anya Chrisanthon for the
I'll take
million
all the
dollar
credit.
idea.
I'll come speak as one of the people presenting.
Yes,
So there you go.
please.
We'll work something out. Yeah, I agree with you. That is definitely my favorite part about being part of this group. Again, I am communicator at heart. I value relationships, and for me, it's really important to build my network, and I'm always on the lookout for how can I connect somebody, right? How can I in the back of my mind, it's always, oh, okay, they said this. I know so and so, that would be perfect to connect them. So I'm always trying to make those connections for people as like my give back. But yeah, that is the best part of this group, is just forging those relationships that I think are going to be lifelong, probably, hopefully.
I think so. I think they will be for sure.
And Carrie, you obviously have been coming to spring leadership meetings, all the meetings for a long time. Talk to me about some other councils or programs. Like, what are you involved with within NAHB, and why are you involved with those councils?
So I am a delegate, which means one of my state's voting members when it comes to the business of NAHB, and I'm the only associate. I think our state gets 7, and I'm the only associate. The others are all builders. So for me, that's a pretty cool privilege and honor to get to have a voice for all associates in Oklahoma when it comes to voting and things like that. I am vice chair of National Professional Women in Building Council. I've been involved with them for quite a while, and we launched our Tulsa's PWB Council in 2020, and I was the first president in Tulsa. So it's really an honor and a privilege to get to be part of this and follow other amazing women in this role. So I really love doing that. I am chair of professional development for the 55 plus Housing Industry Council. And it's a very small council, very small nationwide. We should get more people involved. You don't have to be over 55 to be involved in this. It's more for builders and developers and remodelers and even associates who deal with the 55 plus housing community. And that used to be baby boomers and think handrails and senior communities. But now, if you think about it, Dr. Dre is in this category, and so is Robert Downey Jr. And they want different things than Sally Field wants. It's really getting to be on the leading edge of a growing and changing demographic. And from a sales point, if you think about it, these are the people with all the money. So we should probably get more members to help, because these are the people who are going to be spending the money for the next several decades. And then I'm also part of the National Sales and Marketing Council. I'm part of their professional development committee also. And I love being a part of that because as a realtor, and I'm just going to say this, and you can edit it out if you want to, but NAR isn't doing anything for us. Ever since the lawsuit, they've come out really quickly and said, oh, here's some talking points, here's this, here's that. But they didn't, for the last 18 years, they've not done anything for me. They train new agents, they help train new agents, and then they just leave you to your own devices. Where the NAHB Sales and Marketing Council doesn't just teach you how to sell new construction, but the latest trends and the latest designs and the latest metrics for any kind of sales. Even if you're selling cars, you should be attending their trainings because they really bring in the best and the brightest across the country. And I love being a part of these 3 councils, and I hope to learn about more and see if there's other ways that I can contribute to what NHB has to offer.
So you do a lot. That is a lot of stuff on your plate. And obviously you have a full-time job, you have your husband, so a lot going on there. And so why do you do it? I'm sure you're not like bored out of your mind. You have nothing better to do. So why are you investing your time, money to attend these meetings and to be a part of it?
I started doing it because it was what my dad did, and I grew up with this group of people, and I liked participating. I When my husband got into the business, I was his plus one for a while. It wasn't until I discovered that there's a way that I could make a difference that I really just rolled up my sleeves and said, okay, let's do this. It goes back to that being that little girl that watched Schoolhouse Rock and was told, you can make a change in the world. And so I guess I just took that and owned it and believed it. And so I'm super involved, even though it's a volunteer job. It takes up just as much time as my real job, but I really believe I'm making a difference. I'm making a difference for my senior clients who are on a fixed income and they can't afford to make the necessary changes to their house because of government regulations, and they just need to sell and move on with their lives. I do it so that I can make a difference in young people who maybe think college isn't the way for me and I can't afford that. How could I be a millionaire? You pick up a toolbox and work some overtime, and by the time you're 21 you'll make six figures and own your own business, and you'll go fly high from there. So I think I do so much because I want to make a change in the world, and I hope at the end of the day when they put me in the casket they say this girl made some changes.
I love that. I love how passionate you are about this. And that's what I love about a lot of the women that I met through PWBs. We all seem to share that mutual passion. So if you're like, I've never been to these meetings, I have no idea what these girls are talking about, or if you're a guy, doesn't matter. Like, we welcome all. Doesn't, it doesn't have to be professional women in building. There's the YP, there's committee for everybody. And again, remember, you don't have to be on the committee to start off. You can just come and sit and watch and observe and learn and just make some connections. So again, if you take anything out of this conversation, I encourage you strongly to consider coming to Washington, D.C. this June and just check it out, see what it's all about.
Find
So
me, find Anya, find anybody Anya has interviewed in these podcasts. Introduce yourself, and we will hold you by the hand and show you around.
I'm not kidding about that. Like, she's she's for real. That's exactly how it happened. So Carrie, I'd like to circle back to your occupation again. So as a realtor, I'd love to talk a little bit about marketing now. So where do you see most of your clients come from? And is there anything that you're doing with marketing that's working for you right now?
So honestly, most of my clients right now come from referral from past clients, friends, family. That's probably not the way it should be. I should be out there hustling and innovating my marketing strategies and techniques. I'm not doing that as much as I should be. And that is it was on my New Year's resolution list. And now that we're halfway through the year, I'm like, it'll be my end of the year push. But what I see innovatively that's happening, and that where I really want to shoot for, people believe what they see if you are vulnerable. So social media, TikTok, Instagram, things like that. So I need to do a little more video. I see successful agents doing lives at their open houses, video at really interesting places they go and see and do. And that really engages an audience, and people believe that person. They want to engage with that person because that person's been vulnerable and put themselves out there. And so I really think if we're talking about marketing, I know AI is a big thing right now, but I think just getting back to basics and getting back to the grassroots. Human beings want to do business with human beings. That is my goal. That's what my plan is to shoot for, is be more vulnerable, get out there on social media, talk a little bit more so that I can gain more business by making a connection with people.
Hopefully this podcast will help you on that. And I think you're really selling yourself short with referrals, because that is the best way to get business. That speaks volumes for the kind of professional you are. If you're getting those referrals, that is the best and the cheapest way to market yourself. So kudos to you. Obviously, you figured something out. But I do believe there is a big value in video. Obviously, I've been a big proponent of that. I've been an early adopter. And when I used to sell new construction, I used to have a lot of my friends saying that watching my stories or watching my social media was like watching HDTV, basically. So yeah, so
That's
there,
a huge compliment.
yeah, so people do like to watch, especially if you're selling a lot of those new construction sexy,
Mhm.
people are always wanting to see what the latest trends, what that bathroom looks like, and then all the decor and all the cool stuff. And so, Carrie, obviously you grew up in new construction with the builder environment, but for builders out there who maybe don't have a team of salespeople in-house, what would you say would be some of the best practices for working with an outside agent like yourself?
So I would say, first of all, go and introduce yourself to the realtors. There's an inventory shortage across the country. So if you're a builder and you are building something that doesn't exist yet or isn't listed yet, every realtor wants to be your best friend. And I know sometimes realtors can be a pain to work with, especially with builders. So educate them on your process. And even a one-page bulleted flyer about this is who I am, this is my process, this is how I build, and this is what I expect from you. If you want to get paid, introduce your client to me, come to the first meeting if it's a custom build, and then if you step away and let me work with them, I will pay you. Or I'm going to hold my model open this whole weekend from 1 to 4. If you will bring your clients in and make the introduction, I will pay you a referral fee. Or if you sell a new custom, this is what I pay you. But educate them on your process and how you work so they can be your advocates. And even if they don't sell something right away, you've made that connection. And if they're out showing houses to their clients and their client says nothing works, they will remember you and say, hey, let's try custom building, or let's go look at this model or spec and customize it to something you would want. And you'll just get repeat business as a builder from this huge network of people that want to work for you.
I agree with you. I think builders oftentimes have that love-hate relationship with realtors. And right now it's like a very opportune time to make those connections because there's not a whole lot in the resale market, as you
Right.
said. So they would be eager to jump at that opportunity and form that relationship with you. So, Carrie, as we wrap things up, was there anything that I didn't ask you, whether it's about your career progression, your involvement within NAHB, the Leadership Academy, or anything we talked about, or just anything you think that would be important for our listeners to understand that we didn't cover?
Gosh, we covered quite a bit. I would just say at the end of the day, every single one of us is trying to make someone's sanctuary for them. We're all trying to make a happy place for people to be and hopefully make a living doing it as well. And I think if you have really good referral partners and good marketing partners like Anya and her company, if you get involved and network, I think it's like death in Texas. I don't think we're ever going to go. Our business is probably not ever going to go away. And so I think you'll have a nice, rewarding career in the long run.
Love that. And Carrie, if somebody wants to learn more from you, whether they connected with you and it's, I want to know more about PWB, about any of the other things that you're involved with, or maybe they live in Oklahoma and they want to use you as a realtor, what is the best way to connect with you? Is there a website? Is there social? Like, where do you hang out?
My website, if you're just interested in real estate in general or new builds or luxury homes, my website is tulsastaragent.com.
Love that. And do you hang out in particular social media? Is there LinkedIn? Any channel that you favor?
Facebook, just Carrie Wiggs Deweese is how you find me. I am what you call a posting ghost. So I again trying to be better about that.
There you go. We're gonna get you out of your shell.
Yeah, get me out of my shell. I could do it. But that's where you'd find me on social.
Perfect. Love that. And Carrie, thank you so very much for being on today's podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation, really enjoyed learning more about you and your story because, like I said, we've known each other for a few years now, but I feel like I didn't really know your story or like what I knew you're a realtor, but I didn't know all the things that you're involved with. So it was a pleasure for me personally to connect with you on a little bit of a deeper level. I am so excited to have you as part of the cohort and to continue to build our relationship. So thank you for being on today, and I will see you in person in Washington, D.C.
Just a couple of weeks.
Yes,
Thank you, Anya, so much.
talk to you soon.